Let's date forever. Here's your weekly dose of relationship fuel with Sammi and Nathan Jaeger. Hello and welcome to Date Forever. In this week's episode, we're chatting about some of the non-negotiables that Sammi and I have in our relationship. But before we dive into that, Sammi, what's been fueling you up this week?
I'm feeling very empty this week.
Oh, yeah?
Mm-hmm. I'm running towards the end of a quarter and also a year for my business, which means a lot of projects like right at the deadline stage. I'm about to get my period, so I'm like, energy-wise. And I haven't been that well health-wise in the last couple of weeks, so I haven't really been exerting myself with exercise, which is normally such a go-to for me, both for my mind and my body. So I've just this last couple of weeks have been kind of energy. I also didn't spend any time with any of my friends last week, which is generally something that tops me up quite a lot.
Yeah.
And I didn't take myself out at all last week either. So.
And being sick as well, just sleep patterns and things like that have been a bit disrupted too. So.
Yeah, but if I think about, let me just step out of the struggle and the blah and the because I'm sure there were good things. Oh, I've got it. The thing that fueled me up the most this past week was our weekly ocean swim that we did together on Sunday, right at the last minute, just before sunset. And as we were out in Coogee at the beach, a rainbow appeared, and it appeared in front of us. Minute by minute, it was getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And it was just a really beautiful moment. We had the whole ocean to ourselves. I don't think there was anyone else out there swimming right at sunset, and this beautiful rainbow. And I think it fueled me up because it was quality time with you and it was a really special moment. I just really appreciate those opportunities to take in just how beautiful this world is.
Yeah. Well, it was such a beautiful moment, wasn't it?
What about you, Nath? What fueled you up this week?
So my parents have been visiting us from interstate this week. So it was really nice just to have a bit of extended kind of quality time with them. So often when we're back in South Australia to go visit them, it is very rushed because we've got lots of other friends and things like that to catch up with as well. We're often back there for events. So we don't often get a lot of kind of extended time with my parents. So it was just really nice to be able to have a few different catch-ups and have some deep, meaningful conversations and, just get past the, how are you doing, catch-up kind of chat. So that was really fueling me up this week.
Yeah, that was really nice. We had one particular dinner where we did have really good conversation about, some of the relationship lessons that your parents were able to pass on to us.
Yeah.
So, about this episode. The idea for this episode about sharing some of our non-negotiables came from a question from one of our previous podcast guests, Chrissy Quinn. Her and I went for a walk about a week or so ago, and we were just having a chat about life, relationships, generally the kind of big picture conversations that happen when two creatures get together. But Chrissy asked me a really interesting question that I found myself pondering basically nonstop since she asked it. But she said, what are your non-negotiables? And when she asked, I was like, I know I've got some, but have I designed them? And as I sort of started to answer the question, I realized that I personally do actually have quite a lot of non-negotiables, things that are no fail. That is the standard I am willing to accept for myself and for mine and Nate's relationship. But I wish I had been able to answer her question far more articulately in the moment. And I think it was a really great opportunity for self-reflection on, my relationship with myself and my relationship with Nate, because there are things that I am 100% committed to.
Yeah, and I found this exercise really interesting as well because I've kind of done it since you sort of brought this idea back into the house.
Yeah, I did. I came back from the walk and I was like, Chrissy asked me the most interesting question.
Yeah. And so, I've had a bit of a time to reflect on it as well. And I don't know, it's been an interesting kind of exercise for me too because I definitely see myself as a creature of habit and I'm very habitual around a lot of things that I do. But I actually think that I had a few less negotiables than what you do. So yeah, it was a really interesting exercise just in those sorts of terms.
Well, I think you should go first. So tell us, Nathan, what are some of the non-negotiables that you have for yourself in your relationship with yourself?
So going through the exercise, I've kind of broken these down into daily, weekly, monthly, annual, and then some of the things that we want to kind of aspire to as well in the future. So a couple of my daily non-negotiables. One of them is a practice that I've had for a long, long time, which is really just kind of regrouping and regathering myself when I get back from work. So this was kind of important to me, especially when I was in the office all the time, that I would come back from work and just really want to take half an hour for myself just to kind of regroup, resettle myself before actually setting off and doing anything later in the evening. It just kind of set myself up really nicely for each evening. So it has been a little bit different at different times. Often I'll come home and make a coffee. That's one thing that I do really enjoy and I really kind of cherish each day. I like the process of doing it. We've got a coffee bean subscription at the moment, so we're getting lots of different types of coffee beans. So I really like kind of the art behind making coffee as well. So that's something that I really take pride in making and something that I really enjoy doing. So I'll enjoy a coffee. And often I'll watch some TV or something or spend it like replying to some messages or things like that I might not have done during the day. Or the other thing I might do as well is head down into the garage or something and tinker with some bikes or do a couple of my hobbies that I like doing.
I think this is something that you're really good at, and I should probably take some learnings from this. But yeah, you almost create a third space between work and home, even if you're creating that at home, that third space at home.
Yeah.
I don't do that. I transition between things like they're up against each other. Yeah, I think you're really good at giving yourself space between like the transition.
Yeah, I definitely think so too. And I think this became a really important kind of exercise for me as well, especially once I was working from home even more. And since when we started the podcast and things like that, quite often I was working during the day. And then if I didn't take that time, I was jumping straight in and doing some work on the podcast or the business or things like that too. And so I really wasn't taking that time for myself. So it's been a really important practice while working in the office or now while I'm working from home a little bit more.
Yeah, that's a definite non-negotiable for you, isn't it? Like,
yeah,
there's not very many things that would pull you away from carving out that time for yourself each day.
No, and I think we've got a really good language around that now too. You're like, when I get home from work, you normally ask, oh, do you want a little bit more chill time or something? So yeah, it's normally only like 20, 30 minutes or something when I get home. But yeah, it's just a really nice practice that I've got. So then moving on to some of my weekly activities. So you probably heard on the podcast, if you've been a regular listener, that both Sammi and I have had a goal since moving to the beach to swim in the ocean every week of the year. So that's definitely been a non-negotiable for us, and we've had to cram that in on a Sunday afternoon a few times to get that one done. The next one is a habit that I've had for the last few years, which is really around doing some learning each week in my no extra time, so my net learning. So what that really looks like for me is on my commute to work, I'll often read a book or listen to a book or a podcast or something like that, just so that I'm kind of leveling up personally or professionally or sometimes creatively as well by listening to a fiction book or something like that. And one of my other things is around my health and fitness. So I really want to have one major workout a week. So during footy season for me, that's pretty easy. So I normally go to training once a week and then have the game on a Saturday. But outside of that, I love riding bikes, so whether that's going for a cycle or a mountain bike or something, or very occasionally going for a run. Then moving into monthly. So one of the goals that I've set over the last few years is having a step goal, which I track monthly. So for this year, it's a goal of 9,000 steps a day. Then annually, one of the things that has become really important to us over the last couple of years is really planning in a girls and guys trip. So having a guys trip each year is a non-negotiable too. And moving into a couple of things that I really want to work on building into my life is really building some social time in each week. I am definitely an introvert by heart or nature. I'm not sure which. And so social time does sometimes drop very low in my priority list. So I'm working on just becoming a lot more conscious about planning that in advance, because quite often it'll be very last minute for me to reach out to people, and obviously other people have lives too and don't necessarily have time to catch up. So planning that a bit more in advance and getting in more of a rhythm around that is definitely something I'm working on. And also one that is a goal for this year is starting to do some regular fasting. Yet to commence this one, but really keen to see how it goes and see some of the health benefits from it. So the fasting goal has definitely become a aspirational non-negotiable for me, from a number of different sources. So I know Tony Robbins speaks about it quite often and as something that he has in his toolbox to keep him running at peak performance. Also, Tim Ferriss talks about this a lot as well and talks about it specifically in his book, Tools of Titans. But most recently, I was reading the book called Lifespan by Dr. David A. Sinclair. And he talks about in this book how the research shows that fasting can really help to extend your lifetime, but also the quality of your life as you get into the later years of your life. So yeah, a few really interesting benefits from that I'm keen to try out. So what about you, Sammi? What are some of your non-negotiables?
Nathan, thank you for sharing. I think this is so interesting because the things that you do versus the things that I do to fuel up my self-tank, some of them are definitely the same, but there's others that are really different. And I think this is a really interesting question to ask yourself. Like, what are my non-negotiables for my relationship with myself? Like, where is it that I'm putting myself first? What is a no-fail commitment by me to me? So yeah, thank you for sharing. Now I'm like super curious. This is definitely going to become my next favorite like dinner party conversation. Tell me, what are your non-negotiables with yourself? So if you know me and you're listening to this episode, consider this your warning for preparation. So some of my non-negotiables at a daily level is to close my Apple Watch rings every single day. At current count, I'm on my longest move streak, which means every day continuously without a day off. I'm at day 654.
It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, so I made this commitment to move, stand up and exercise 600 and something days ago. And I'm so committed to that being a priority each and every day. And I have time blocked in my calendar every day to accommodate me making that a priority so that it never falls off of the bottom. As I've already said in this episode, like moving my body is so fundamental as a pillar for my well-being, my emotional well-being, my mental well-being, my physical well-being. So it's just a non-negotiable for me. And yeah, since really prioritizing this, it absolutely is a non-negotiable. The other thing is 2 or 3 liters of water, and I do that with ease now. I also take a handful of vitamins morning and night, and a newer one that I'm doing to try and work on improving some of my gut health is daily kombucha. And this is probably like more of an aspirational daily practice would be at least half an hour of time in natural light and grounding. So bare feet on a natural surface, whether that's grass or sand or ocean. And I am not quite at a daily with that, but I'm trying really hard to get that to be, I'm definitely well past weekly on both of those. But yeah, as Nate said, weekly ocean swims all year round. So we haven't missed one yet. We are, a year and a half into that
probably
streak.
70 weeks or something.
Yeah. And then outdoor exercise. So not only is it important for me to, close those rings every day, but weekly I really need to make sure that some of that exercise is happening outdoors. Weekly, it's really important for me to have contact time with my friends, whether or not that's on the phone or FaceTime or best yet in real life. But I would clock at least sort of probably upwards of 5 hours a week with my friends, if not more. And that is really, really important to me. Nath already mentioned this one too, of no extra time learning, so net time. And same, I generally listen to a book or a podcast or watch a training on something that I'm learning about each week that fuels my growth. And that's, again, really important to me. The other thing that's really non-negotiable is I am alcohol-free Monday to Thursday. It's pretty rare that I would break that kind of personal policy with myself. The other couple of things that I do monthly is to read 2 books a month. And I visit the chiropractor to keep my body in alignment. That's a practice that I probably started over 2 years ago now. Yeah. But it's just been so revolutionary for managing my migraines. And it got me back running, which is something that I really didn't think I was going to be able to do after working with sports physios, having cortisone injections, all the things. And the thing that has by far made the most amount of impression has been getting a standing desk and seeing a chiropractor once a month. So that's non-negotiable for me. And I've actually given up some other like self-care kind of beauty things so that I can continue to see this chiropractor at that rhythm. This is probably like a funny one, but I almost always have a pedicure. It's pretty non-negotiable for me. That's like something that makes me feel like I have my life together. It's also something that I've tried to master doing for myself, and I just can't get it to the standard that makes me feel good. And I also just really, really love sitting in an automatic massage chair for like 60 minutes or so. It's roughly about once a month. But yeah, that's something that is non-negotiable for me. I spend a lot of time with bare feet, hence my daily grounding. And I like to look down and see put together polished toes. And on the beauty side of things or outward grooming and presentation, I budget to get my hair treatment done 3 times a year. So I get a couple more cuts in there, but 3 really good treatments. And again, that's a non-negotiable for me. I put money aside to budget for that. The other thing that I do that's non-negotiable, I don't think there has been any time in the last almost 5 years where I haven't actively been working with a coach. Paired with that, some sort of accountability call or peer group that is holding me accountable to my commitments. That's not to say that it's been the same coach for 5 years or that I've been working with a coach on one particular topic for that time. Like there's been different times where I've worked with a relationship coach, I've worked with a career coach, I've worked with a business coach, I've worked with personal trainers to help me get prepared for my triathlon. I'm a big advocate for asking who, not how. So if who has done what it is that I'm trying to do and what secrets can they share with me so that I can learn faster. Yeah, and I know that some months I really don't want to show up for that accountability call, and those are the months that I know that I need to because I know that when I'm like looking to avoid that accountability, that's when I need it most. So then same as Nath, like at an annual level, the girls' weekend away, I generally do more than one because friendship's so important to me and my friends really are some of my chosen family. And then I also try and do a physical challenge each year. So last year it was completing my first triathlon. In previous years it's been like learning to surf or competing in a pole dancing showcase. So each year I generally try and pick something that I've not done before in the pursuit of growth and new experiences and just challenging myself. And I really like expanding myself in that way. But all of those things on that list are no fail. They're really, really important to me. And I will prioritize them ahead of almost everything else. And then I've got some aspirational non-negotiables, things that I would like to be a lot stronger at. And I'm working on integrating as things that I don't reach my own boundary on. I would like to have a much stronger meditation practice. I do stretch most days, but it's not all days, and I would like to be better at that. I wish, like we host the Date Forever podcast, and a big part of that is having a really strong relationship with self. And we come on the show and we advocate for taking yourself on solo dates. And I don't think that's something that I'm very good at holding a strong rhythm around. It's definitely something that I do, but I wish I was honoring a much stronger cadence to myself, for myself with that. And that might be, like whether or not it's taking myself out to eat because I love to eat. Or just I would like to take myself on more dates that I would expect Nathan to take me on. But I don't really give myself that gift as often as I would like. And in the same sort of rhythm, like I would like to be taking more clarity breaks, whether or not that's just like going to a cafe with a laptop or a journal and actively working on me and my career or whatever it might be, to be more intentional about giving myself white space. I'm not very good at that. I cram my weeks pretty full. Another thing that I'd like to be much stronger at is a commitment to hobbies and interests outside of work and professional and personal development. Like, I wish I had a non-negotiable like sewing or crafting or drawing or blah, 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 blah. That I know that it's really important for me to have a sense of self outside of all of those things. So that's something that I'm working on as well. And then this one's kind of a funny one. I wish I had a non-negotiable about the amount of money that I spend on other people because gifts are my love language. So I'm very quick to buy and give gifts to other people, sometimes at my own detriment. So that's something that I wish was a non-negotiable.
So as you mentioned at the start, there's a few things that are very similar between two of our non-negotiables, but there's also definitely some very personal ones in there too.
Yeah, and I think I have to remind myself sometimes that like I don't need to be perfect at this whole big long list. Like if I'm nailing the first things that I've already embedded as routine, as habit of just the way that I am, like I'm already doing really well in taking care of myself and prioritizing that self-care.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of these things start out as you almost need to be perfect at it to embed the habit. But then once it's embedded, it just becomes almost second nature. And it just becomes one of those things that you do almost every day.
Yeah, I so agree. Hey, it's the standard that you set for yourself. And once that becomes the standard, that's the standard. And you really don't have to work very hard to maintain that.
No, exactly. So that was a bit about our personal non-negotiables. But we've also got a number of non-negotiables for our relationship too. So do you want to give us a rundown on our daily non-negotiables?
Yes. So Nath's love language is physical touch. So I think this one's really important, but we do physical touch with our partings and greetings. So whenever either of us is leaving the other one, we will kiss or hug goodbye. And then when we're coming back together, we connect physically, to reunite.
Yeah. And we do that regardless of whether you're awake or asleep or...
Yeah, we do. Yeah. That is a non-negotiable. I can't even imagine either one of us leaving home without sort of announcing it and parting ways in a really meaningful way. This might be the like drama queen in me, but like in the very few instances where we are in the middle of a uncomfortable conversation or some sort of conflict and we can't stay in that space and we do need to be somewhere else, like we will still hug and kiss when we're angry or when we're frustrated. Like I don't let that drop ever.
No, that's just the standard. So the next one of our daily non-negotiables is our gratitudes. So we've got a practice that each night we will say 2 or 3 things each that we're grateful for that day. So that's a super quick little thing that we do each night just before going to bed.
And then back to the physical touch. We have a pash every day, a passionate kiss with tongue. Yeah. And sometimes we will be crawling into bed at night and go, did we have our pash today?
Yeah.
And sometimes the answer is no, and we do it in bed.
We do.
Before turning off the lights.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's something that we do. I don't even know where we picked this up or how long we've been doing it, but I know that quite a few coaches who play in the sex intimacy sort of space talk about how important it is to have that sort of intimate, passionate kiss without any sort of sense of pressure that it needs to lead to anything more than that. Yeah, so we can have a cheeky pash and it just be a cheeky pash.
Yeah, definitely. And our other daily non-negotiable is just touching base, like normally by text message each day as well. This is assuming that we're apart for the day. I'm in the office or that Sammy's out during the day. This is the communication language that we've worked out works at a daily level, especially because both of us are busy with our own work and businesses. Communicating via text just means that we can respond in a little bit slower time if we can, or we can be on that Zoom meeting and be messaging away in the background. So yeah, it's just really that daily practice to know that we're thinking about each other each day.
Yeah, and they're not like big conversations that we're having. It's normally like, how did that meeting go? Or how was your lunch? Or this is what I'm eating? Or what do you want for dinner? Or those kind of just really quick touch base kind of communication. And I think, like Nate said, this took a while for us to sort of figure out what worked. Because I know some people do phone calls in the middle of the day. Some people don't connect at all during the day. Some people do voice memos or photos or whatever the rhythm might be. But yeah, it took us a little while to figure out what was the right sort of frequency for us. But it would be a very unusual day for one of us to leave home early in the morning, be out and about all day, and not touch base until arriving home. That'd be very, very rare, if ever.
Yeah, it would be. So then moving into our weekly non-negotiables. So our first one is publishing an episode of Date Forever every week.
Which we've been doing for 3 years now.
I know. How amazing.
Yeah.
So the next one, which is our normal Sunday routine, is having our happy hour chat. So we've deep dived into this happy hour chat in a number of other episodes, but this one came from one of our early guests, Tristan from Purpose Advisory. And this is our weekly chat just to run through a few things to get us really on the right foot for the week. So the things we chat about are appreciation. So what would you like to be appreciated for, or what would you like to give appreciation for? Our calendar, so what's going on in the next week or two. Food, what are we going to eat this week, when, where and how, and who's responsible for the planning and prep of that. Money, so how's our money looking this week? Have we spent too much? Are we looking good? Set expectations, so what are we liking, not liking, what do you want to try, or how are you feeling about your body? And then a few rapid fire questions, so how did you feel this week? Was it a good one, bad one, or other kind of week? How connected do you feel to me? What would you like me to apologise for this week? Is there something I've done or not done this week that's upset you? What are our priorities for the next week? Is it health, wealth, career? What's the focus? And what can I help you with this week? What would make your life easier?
So the Gottman Institute talk about this sort of check-in being like the state of the union. It's like, where are we at? How are things? And that opportunity to like let air out of the balloon before it explodes, or prevent resentment, all of those kind of things. So yeah, that's a weekly non-negotiable. It's pretty rare that we miss one. And when we do, we feel the after effects.
So the next one on our weekly list is sex. So this doesn't mean that we're just having sex once a week, but it's definitely something that is on our priorities each week.
This is a taboo thing to talk about, isn't it? Because you don't really know how often other couples are doing it. And when they say doing it, what does that mean? Are we counting orgasms? Are we counting all kinds of sexual activities? Just some? Do we only count it if it was good? But yeah, this is important to us.
Yep. And weekly is the non-negotiable.
Yeah, unless we're like traveling. That's really the only time it falls.
Or we're apart.
But even when we're apart. So then monthly, we do a couple of things. So we try and have 2 dedicated, carved out quality time dates. Nath will organise one in the first half of the month, and I will organise one in the second half of the month. And that's just totally uninterrupted, intentional quality time. We generally put the phones away, do an activity together. Sometimes it's in the house, sometimes it's out of the house, but we are both accountable for hosting one per month. And then the other thing that we do at a monthly level is check in on our goals. So we set goals annually and then we check in on them every month.
So then moving to our annual non-negotiables. So the first one is really attending a personal development event or course or program or something. And we normally do this together as well. So the last 2 or 3 years we've attended a Tony Robbins event, but we've also done a few other things too.
Yeah, and we annually take a holiday. Travel is really high on our priorities, so generally it's more than one. But yeah, annual holidays is really important.
As you probably heard us talk about multiple times on the show before as well, our annual planning practice is really a non-negotiable for us. So we've had this for the last probably 7 or 8 years and has just become the absolute benchmark and really sets ourselves up for the year.
So then the things that we probably are aspirational non-negotiables, like they're in sort of the like layering stage of building a habit, but they're not totally yet embedded, is 8 or more hours of sleep a night.
Yeah, this one's been a bit of a struggle for us. We've tried it a couple of times before and setting up a really good bedtime and morning routine as well.
And just sleep hygiene.
Yeah. So this one has kind of faded in and out every now and then, but it's definitely something that we would really like to aspirationally achieve.
Oh, I just thought of another non-negotiable that we do.
Yeah.
No phones in the bedroom.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a big one to introduce. And that was like, we had to go through like a weaning off sort of process, didn't we? But yeah, no negotiable. Phones don't charge in the bedroom overnight. We use a different alarm. Phones don't belong in there. That is for sleep and sex. Another aspirational non-negotiable is to play our fair play cards every week. So you may have heard us talk about this before, but Eve Rodsky wrote a book called Fair Play, and there's a deck of cards that go with the book that outline, I think it's about 100 tasks that generally happen in most households. And the intention is there to create some visibility over who's accountable for what tasks. And we've been tinkering with this system probably about a year.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and we want to get to a place where we're looking at those cards weekly, and we're not quite there yet, but we're looking at them regularly.
Yeah, we are.
So that we know who's accountable for what, and that if anyone's carrying a particularly heavy household task, that they aren't carrying it for forever, that they do get a break from time to time. And the one that is the worst in our household is laundry. Both don't like it, both not good at it.
Yeah, and both often get stuck with it because we hate it so much. And one of our other aspirational non-negotiables too is playing the Esther Perel game, Where Shall We Begin? So some really good question prompts in there. We don't really play the game how it's meant to be played, but we normally just pick out a random card and use it as a discussion topic over a dinner one night a week.
This has been really cathartic. I know that we've done quite a few episodes on how we keep our fuel tanks fueled up, and we've done a deep dive on our Fueled Up Life mini-series where we did one episode on each tank and what we're doing to keep it fueled up and what we would like to be doing. So this has really been like a bit of a recap on what are the non-negotiables for our own relationship with self and our romantic relationship. I think I just want to reiterate here that I wouldn't say that we're novice. We're not in beginner early stage of any of this. Like, we've been very intentional about our personal development journey and our romantic relationship development and journey for at least 5 years. And neither of us started with these habits or practices. These have built and layered over time. And there's definitely ones that we have been doing almost since the beginning of our relationship. And there's others that are, 5 years old, others that are 1 or 2 years old. So if you're hearing this and you're not quite there with some of these habits and practices yet, please don't let that deter you. Just start by saying, like, what's one thing that I could do to be consciously adding a little bit more fuel to my relationship with myself or my relationship with my person. And as you heard us share with our aspirations, like, we're not quite where we want to be yet either.
I think just another key thing to note too is, although these are our non-negotiables, there are occasions that we do miss them. And I think it's just really important to not beat yourself up if you do miss these things too. We are all human. Life happens to all of us as well. And there are sometimes things that get in the way or just routines that are upset and you physically can't achieve some of these things in a day or a week or annually as well. So I think it is just really important to give yourself a little bit of grace as well if you can't achieve some of these non-negotiables.
I think that's really important what you've shared too, Nath. Like, not to throw the whole practice out because you missed a day or because you missed a week. Like, a little bit of grace and forgiveness while you're setting standards for yourself. So to say thank you for joining us today and listening to the Date Forever podcast, we have made a contribution to So They Can to maintain a classroom for quality education in Kenya. I had the great privilege of going on a virtual tour of the school in Kenya and meeting some of the students about a year ago, and oh gosh, it warmed my heart so much. So it fills me with joy to be able to support that organisation. So we've given a month's worth of classroom maintenance. So thank you to Buy One, Give One, who is our giving partner to make that possible, but also you for listening and being here with us.
Thanks heaps for joining us. If you love what we're doing here and want more, subscribe to the Date Forever podcast to make sure you never miss an ep. Come and hang out with us and other awesome couples who are fueling up their relationships in the Thriving Couples Collective Facebook group, or check us out at fuelcollective.com.au. Until next time, keep on dating, because better relationships equal a better world.